Hey everybody, we got a really, really good show in store for you today. Someone that you probably, many of you know already. We have Art from the Art and Bri YouTube channel joining us to talk about a subject that I have zero experience with when it comes to actually doing, but lots of experience with when it comes to enjoying and eating. Art is joining us today to talk about fermenting food. And for those few of you out there who may not know who Art is, a little background on Art. He grew up in the suburbs of Asheville, North Carolina, and he's always wanted to end up farming. And if you watch Art's channel, you know he's been real successful at that. At the age of 19, he raised his first pigs. 5 years ago, Art and his wife, Bri, moved to the country and they bought a 100-year-old farm where they're now raised, first and foremost, 5 kids. So we feel your pain there, Art. And then yeah, chickens, pigs, cows, and goats. They raise a large garden every year, have 5 freezers full of meat and vegetables, and a cellar of fermented food, which is what we're going to be talking about today. They started posting on YouTube 4 years ago in an attempt to build a home-based income stream. And since then, Art has been able to, he was a nurse for a long time. He's been able to quit his job as a nurse and do the Homestead YouTube thing full time. His passion for fermenting began and grew with his garden, and today he eats fermented food every single day. He's taught thousands of people how to do this on YouTube, and he's going to share some of that fermenting wisdom with us today. I'm excited, Art, because I have zero experience with fermenting. This is like, you're going to have a real good 101 beginner level discussion here. Catch us up to speed. So, Art, welcome to Homesteady.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. And I actually think it's kind of neat that you don't have a lot of experience with fermenting and that we're talking about it, because that is one of my passions, is introducing people to it. And even just the other day, I taught a friend who never fermented food. I said, "Hey, let's make something now." And in about 15 minutes, we actually made sauerkraut and sent it all home with me.
I like the sound of that. You guys, I know because I've been watching you on YouTube over the years, we were talking before the show started, me and Art have led kind of parallel lives with our family. Our children are very similar in ages. We've had very similar animal journeys and experiences. We've had the goats and the cows and all the other stuff. So I've been watching you guys for a while. Art, I know what you got going on there. But for those in the audience who haven't been following you guys, and haven't seen just the amount of harvest that you have every year to actually put up, tell us a little bit about your homestead, what you guys have been actively doing and growing there over the years. When it comes to harvest time, you got your hands full. Tell us about your North Carolina homestead.
We are homesteading pragmatists, and we're honestly not the best at it. And when you look around online, there's a lot of people who know more than we do on many subjects. But I will say what we have done is we've given a steady input of labor to try to grow our productivity. And we haven't done a massive, fast, HGTV type makeover of our homestead. It's been slow, steady progress. And so this year, I really feel like was the fruition of a lot of hard work. We've raised a lot of animals for meat. We've raised pigs. We've butchered a steer, and we have one more growing out there. We've been milking a cow. We've milked goats. But it's building every year. And so this year, our garden harvest, just because we've slowly been building the soil, our garden harvest was the very best that we've ever had. And we actually we've bought multiple freezers this year because we keep running out of space to put food, which is a really good problem to have.
It was a hard year to get freezers.
It is a very hard year. We fought for them. we fought for the freezers, but or my wife did actually. But I may have miscounted. We may have 4, but no, we have 5. We have 5 full freezers.
Wow. So you practically speaking, you guys just needed a way to preserve things without freezers because they're already all full.
Yeah, and that is definitely an aspect of fermentation that I'm passionate about. I as far as the volume of food that I put up with fermenting, it's a relatively small portion of what we put up. I do want to expand that more and more. But we did actually take some whole crops or cabbage crop. The vast majority of it went into sauerkraut, which we'll be eating at least till next summer, if not till the next time that we harvest cabbage. And then even just last night, I went out and picked all of our hot peppers, and it took about an hour to do this, but I turned them into the first stage of a hot sauce. And that's actually a cool ferment that will last longer than almost any other ferment. And actually, it's modeled after Tabasco sauce, and you can age it or ferment and age it from 3 months to 3 years before you actually make your new product.
No way. That's good for the procrastinators in the audience, of which I am one. So, of course, our beginner 101, everybody's thinking like, making my own ferments, I'm going to kill myself and my family, right?
That's actually some common feedback I've gotten.
You hear that a lot. Am I going to kill everybody?
Yeah, it is. It's very common feedback. I even brought, I went to the beach a few weeks ago with my siblings, and I think my siblings are pretty tough, but one of my sisters actually said, am I gonna die if I eat this? I brought along some food. The long story, in a short version on the safety of fermenting is that it's very safe. The thing about fermented foods is that this seemingly magical process of the bacteria that proliferate and then acidify the food actually can make it safer than eating fresh vegetables in some cases, and in some situations it can be actually safer than canning.
Let's like start at the very beginning. For those in the audience who, like me, are like, all I know about fermentation is that I think they do that for beer. Tell us a little bit about what's involved. It's obviously something that homesteaders, even with a big family like you guys and a lot's going on, can do. What is fermentation? What things do we see on our shelf in our pantry that we could know, oh, that's been fermented? You know, what are we looking at here?
So fermentation is basically a very controlled, very slow motion decomposition of food. It is dramatically slower than any other decomposition you might be familiar with. And the effect of the decomposition of food and the bacteria that proliferate when you put the right ingredients together is that you have a very acidified food that will last a long time. Now, that's not the only facet of fermentation. You know, I would say most people do start fermentation because they want to eat the foods because they like them. And there's also a large number of people who get into it because of health benefits or perceived health benefits, kind of depending on your perspective on it. So those are kind of the three entry points that a lot of people get into fermenting through, or they might want to, is preservation, the flavor, and then the health side of it. And personally, I wouldn't ferment if I didn't love eating fermented foods. I wouldn't. Now, additionally, they're convenient. I mean, in a certain sense, because I'm able to store food without putting it in the freezer. And additionally, I believe there's health benefits from it. And I feel like there's health benefits when I eat the fermented foods. And I eat them, I pair them with other foods. I feel like my digestion is better. Fermentation, in a nutshell, though, is a highly controlled decomposition, which actually results in a preservation. Interesting.
When you already mentioned our sauerkraut, that already, you know, okay, we all know sauerkraut. Yep, throw it on a hot dog and that's delicious. What other foods that we're normally eating are something that is or could possibly be fermented?
Yeah, so Tabasco is one. Some coffees are fermented along in the process.
Coffee?
Yeah, I believe the coffee beans are fermented, unless I'm mistaken. There's a whole list of them that are basically the common products. Yogurt is technically a type of ferment. Bread is a ferment. So it's a different type than I mostly do. I mostly do vegetable ferment. Um, but other common foods that people make in a fermented make through fermentation are anything in the pickle realm, and many pickles traditionally were actually fermented pickles. You can have pickled pickles as well that aren't canned, and that's a whole other thing. Um, there is actually a bigger list than that. I can't tell you all of them. But the interesting thing is when you get any of those products, say coffee or even ketchup at one point was fermented, you're not necessarily getting the health benefits from them because all the bacteria in them are dead because they've either been pasteurized or roasted or heat treated.
Now you mentioned really quick there, Art, the you can get pickles that are been pickled and then canned. What's the difference between fermentation and canning something? Because we can see pickles that have been canned, we can see pickles that have been fermented. What's different between the two things?
I actually love talking about this. So yeah, it's basically two different preservation techniques, if you want to look at it that way. And they are, interestingly, the end products are similar. And another parallel is the difference between a store-bought sauerkraut that you just buy from the shelf of the store that's been pasteurized. And that's most sauerkraut you'll find on your grocery store shelf. And the difference between a jar of sauerkraut that you make at home. So the difference between canning and fermenting is that with canning, your goal is actually to eliminate as much life as possible inside your container. And so we do this through, water bath canning, or if you're using a non-acidified food, we would use a pressure cooker, which is going to get it up to a significantly higher temperature and kill essentially anything in it. And most importantly, inactivate or kill botulism spores. Fermenting, on the other hand, we actually are encouraging life. And if you don't have that bacterial activity inside of your container or in your food, you actually will completely fail. So if you were to actually sterilize the food and then try to ferment it, it would rot. And the reason for that is because what you actually have to do to ferment successfully is put bacteria into your jar. And when you're harvesting stuff from the garden, or even in most cases getting vegetables from the store, you're actually placing the bacteria into the jar. And not only are you placing these good bacteria, and there's several families that produce lactic acid, which is the end result, you're also, interestingly, putting pathogenic bacteria into it, most likely, because things like botulism spores and E. coli, salmonella, they're actually relatively common, and botulism is actually fairly common in the soil. So that's how effective and safe it is that you're actually, along with these really good bacteria that are present on, say, a cabbage, you're putting botulism spores in there as well. And the process is so foolproof that you're never going to get botulism from fully fermented food.
This process of fermenting things, how does the process ensure that you're not going to make your family sick? What is it about this process that kills that stuff?
Yeah. So specifically, the thing that makes it safe is the food becoming acidic. That's what makes it safe. And that's actually the distinction between in canning, not fermenting. That's actually also the distinction in canning between foods that are much safer to can. So if your food has a certain acidity, or if you're canning something in vinegar, let's say tomatoes have enough acidity, you can just can them in hot water. And additionally, you could can, say, make pickles and with vinegar, and that's very acidic. The thing is that a hot water bath, canning and boiling water, doesn't kill or inactivate botulism spores. So those spores possibly or likely are in any jar of, say, canned dilly beans, one of my favorite things, or canned dill pickles. But it will never proliferate to the point where they can create toxin to hurt you in that acidic environment. Fermenting does the same thing, but the acid is created by the bacteria. And so all you have to do is provide the right environment. And what that environment is anaerobic and salty. If you provide an anaerobic and salty environment, the bacteria that are present on the food, they will proliferate. It's not foolproof. You sometimes have failed ferments, but the difference between failed canned goods and failed ferments is you can have failed canned goods. Let's say you can green beans. And actually under me right now, when we bought this house, there were 1,000 jars of food, and a lot of them were green beans. And I don't know, but I have a feeling they weren't canned in a pressure cooker. Some of them were 15, 20 years old. A jar of canned green beans with no acid added is actually the perfect environment for botulism to grow in.
Wow.
And it can be totally invisible. So if you pop that lid off, you won't smell anything. Potentially, there's enough botulism that's proliferated in there that the toxin can kill you not quickly, but miserably. With fermenting, though,
that's
I can tell you a lot
there. I'm never
eating
I can tell you a lot about again. Sorry, Art.
It's like progressive loss of function with respiratory failure as the end game. But with fermented foods, if it doesn't acidify, you're going to know it because it's going to rot or mold or get nasty because it's exposed to the environment, essentially. It's not sealed in, so other bacteria are going to get in there. If it's not acidified, it's going to go downhill really fast. So that's just the amazing thing about the process.
It's nice to know this will have a clear, it's either good or it's not. What steps do you need to make sure, Art, as you're going, that you're doing this the right way and you're fermenting safely?
First of all, when you look at the fermenting safety guidelines, there's no warning. There's no death warning on those web pages. There's just basic instructions. When you look at canning instructions, they'll say like, hey, you really have to get this right or you'll get sick. And everyone's grandparents have told them, like, you can get really sick from canning. But those warnings are not present in their official recommendations. There's a list from, I don't remember, I think it's University of Kansas has a good safety guidelines. And it's basically, they say don't ferment in a trash can. Don't ferment with garbage bag liners. It's like wash your hands, wash your surfaces, and that's about it.
A lot of our audience is homestead dreamers. I know you guys got those in your audience too. People that want to live the dream, want to have this lifestyle, but maybe they're in an apartment. Maybe, they are living in the suburbs, but they're not allowed to grow a garden in their town. They got town ordinance telling them not to. What can those people do to make sure that they can find the freshest veggies out there? Where would you send them?
I've fermented many vegetables from the grocery store because, when I started fermenting, that's what I had. We weren't able to successfully grow cabbage really until two years ago, I think. And I was making sauerkraut because I loved it so much long before that. And it's I don't think it's as much of a danger as much as it's slightly more likely you will have issues or ferments go bad if you're using older vegetables. So yeah, I would definitely suggest that people look at farmers around them. That's my first suggestion. Now, when you're getting into the winter, it's challenging, but I just picked my last cabbage 2 weeks ago, I think. I left a lot of it out there to keep it fresh without having to put it in the fridge, and then made it into sauerkraut late. That's what the main suggestion is, like looking around in their area, who's farming in their area, or what stores are actually buying fresh stuff. Some grocery stores, they have no idea how fresh something is. There are stores that can pride themselves in saying like, oh yeah, that was the shipment we got on this day.
I always love a project that somebody can do, whether they're in the apartment or whether they bought the homestead. What you said there, don't wait. I'm always big on telling people when you get to the homestead and you actually start growing the veggies, you're going to be so busy learning how to do that, you won't have time to can, right? That first, how many veggies did you guys wind up your first few years of gardening, like giving to the chickens? Because you just didn't have the right, you couldn't keep up on it all. So
Yeah.
if you learn before you have the giant pile of whatever rotting, learn how to can, learn how to ferment, learn how to do those things before you actually get to the homestead. Then you can focus on at the homestead how to grow them. And like you said, a major part of that is years investing into your soil. After you finally get to that point where you are growing cabbage and it's working and you have a lot, you'll already be able to just easily ferment as you go. So for any of
Yeah.
you out there watching that don't have the homestead yet, this is a great one of those great skills projects to start with.
I totally agree with that. And I do think that a lot of folks, I've talked to a lot of people who want to homestead, and I do feel like that having the homestead or the land is actually an impediment in some ways to making progress towards the goal because, and I can't say I didn't struggle with that. I did. I had a very big focus on that, but there's so much you can do. And actually, your biggest asset in the end is not going to be your land, though it's one of the big ones. It's actually you.
Yes, yes.
and what you know and what you can do. And so, yeah, start now.
And you show up at your homestead knowing what you know and not knowing what you don't know. And I think about even just my wife and myself, you watch our arc through the years on our channel and through our podcast, and her arc is a lot more graceful because she grew up this way. She knows this stuff. She enjoys things that for me were just clean. I was just cleaning barn stalls and I did not enjoy it. And I probably still don't like cleaning barn stalls, to be honest. But the more experience she came to this life with helped her. Whereas for me, it was totally green. And each step of the process, I had to learn as we go. And you can totally do it. I mean, watch our channel for the last, how many years. It's a crash course in things we've learned as we go.
Exactly.
But so much better. The more skills you can show up with, you think of two different Swiss Army knives. You got your basic model and you got your super duper camper, survivalist model. You can take both of those into the field to use, but the one with more stuff is going to be a lot more useful when it's there in the field. So,
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I look at fermenting as a skill, but it's also, I mean, you think about it from the perspective of just pure enjoyment. And it's like, you wouldn't think, oh, I'm never going to bake bread until I, own 20 acres. It just doesn't make sense. But like fermentation, and that's why I think that anyone should get into it. Fermentation is like, it's not cooking. It's technically not cooking. But as far as the things you can do with vegetables, it's one of the most unique and delicious things. And it provides this acidic flavor that it's an incredible accent to a lot of foods. Just like putting lemon or lime or salad dressing on foods, you can put that acidified food, that sauerkraut or those dilly beans, like beside something else you're eating, and it changes the whole meal. Have you ever fermented anything?
Art, I don't think I ever have. My
You really?
wife has. So she's done. We had a friend back in Connecticut who was
Yeah.
Korean, and one day she did like a kimchi get together, and all the friends there got to do kimchi. And I'm trying to think though. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know. Me personally, I can definitely tell you I've never fermented a thing because I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I tell you how easy it is to make sauerkraut?
Yeah. Come on, do it. Teach me right here.
Do you have cabbage? Can one of your kids run and get cabbage now?
Grab a cabbage. No.
Take a head of cabbage and chop it finely.
Think I
Put
can
salt
handle
on
that.
it.
Think I can handle that.
Yeah. Just, you can put it on a cutting board or in a big bowl. It's ideal. And it doesn't matter. You can chop it real finely or a little fine. Just put a salt on it and kind of mix it with your hands and just taste it and keep adding salt until you like how it tastes. Make sure it's a little salty, but until you like it. Tastes good. And then let it sit there for 30 minutes. It's going to pull moisture. The salt's going to pull moisture out of the cabbage. It's going to create a little brine down there. Pack it into a mason jar and put something down in the mason jar to hold it down. A weight. It can be a rock you just washed or boiled. It could be, you could buy canning weights. I don't. Or actually, it works perfectly with a quart jar. Is a tiny little 4-ounce jelly jar, and set it down in there with some water in it. Put a coffee filter and a rubber band on top, and then just put it on your counter, and you're done.
Awesome, Art. This has been a fascinating kind of 101, even pre 101 on the fermentation process. If for those who are listening who are thinking, man, I like this idea, I'm going to try Art's like basic, cabbage ferment 101 easy thing, but I want to go beyond that. What are you guys about to release? What can people look for?
We're actually about to release a fermenting course, and it's our first online course. We released kind of a beta version of it about 3 weeks ago, and it's been super fun. We actually had more students than I expected. A lot of students signed up for the beta version, and we've been interacting with them, and they've been going through the content, and that's been really fun. My sister and I basically teamed up on this. She actually, I would say she's more expert with not only cooking and food prep, she's like worked in that field a lot, but she's also really, really strong in fermenting. And so, yeah, we're about to open the course back up, kind of do a bigger launch, and we're super excited about it.
If someone is looking at this course you guys are releasing, Art, what can they expect to learn from the course? What do you guys teach in this fermentation course? What is someone going to see? And at the end of it, what will they know?
Okay, that's great. So the course is for beginning or kind of intermediate fermenters. If you've never fermented, it's appropriate for you if you want to. And if you maybe made 1 or 2 fermented foods, but want to branch out and want to dig into the topic on a deeper level. As far as the course content goes, it covers basic vegetable fermenting. So we kind of do an overview of information. We talk about safety, and we talk about storage at some length. We talk about all the equipment that you would need. We have like grocery lists. And then the core of it, though, is recipes. And so, the first week there's just one recipe, but then in the following 2 weeks, we focus on 2 different methods. One is dry salting, which is what I just described with the sauerkraut, putting salt on vegetables. And the other one is brining, which would be pickles, dilly beans, anything that you're making a salt brine and pouring it over. So there's, I think, 11 recipes. We're actually adding recipes as we go from the beta launch to this one. So there'll be more recipes available in this one. And we make everything from sauerkraut to dilly beans. There's some really fun ones that are like fermented corn. We do the fermented mustard. We do hot sauce. And what the person the course is really for is for someone who wants to start fermenting right now, who actually wants to go for it, who's wanted to for a long time. And the end result is going to be like our goal, at least what we work really hard towards is people have confidence that they can ferment basically any vegetable. And so it's not just about the recipes that are in the course. It's also about giving people the tools and the resources they need so they can just keep going in fermenting and go into the future.
I love that you're equipping somebody, you're giving them what they need to go further. I heard it recently said that a good teacher wants to see their students go beyond, not just learn what they teach them, but actually go beyond, right? Be able to someday teach something back to that teacher in the same field. And so you guys are getting people started, lighting a passion, and then setting them loose with the right knowledge, right skills, the right, precautions and warnings, so that they can go and hopefully make their own recipes, and maybe one day they can share a jar or something. Maybe one day I'll share a jar or something with Art. I'll do my own ferment here. Well, Art, thank you so much. If someone is looking to get in on the course as of the release of this video, we will have a link below that they can click. And Art, when they click the link below, they'll find, what will they find out about the course there? What answers can they get from our link below?
It'll be basically like our course sales page, which will line out all the options and then show everything that's included. there's basically 3 levels that you can get in. One of them is just the basic video content, which is a lot of video content. And then the next level up, though, has support, because a lot of people are dealing with fear and uncertainty and worry about fermenting. That's what we found out when we started building the courses. So we said, hey, let's get support. So basically the middle level is the level where you'll be in a Facebook group and you can get like all your questions answered by us. So we really wanted to integrate that in.
Awesome. And one thing I noticed, I've been able to take a quick peek at the course, and I plan on diving in more over the next coming days. But one thing I noticed that might get somebody interested out there is you were sharing a recipe that you said your kids gobbled up like candy, and it was vegetables. And I know as a father of 5, Art, if you got some way to get kids to eat more vegetables, you have my attention.
Yeah, they disappear. It's actually, I actually have to stop them sometimes because I'm like, wait, how many more jars do we have? Let's make that last.
You're not growing enough. Well, Art, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us for this discussion. And no doubt, if people are interested, you're going to enjoy this. Art has made a couple of videos in his time. What video number are you on at the channel, Art? You got any idea?
800 something.
Yeah, you guys have a ton of great vlogs out there. So if you actually haven't stumbled across Art and Bri's YouTube channel, we'll have a link to that below as well. Follow their family along. If you like what's going on here at Homesteady and the vloggy stuff we do, you'll like what Art and Bri are up to with their 5 kids out in North Carolina and all the stuff they got going on there. So check that out too. But no doubt, if you're interested in fermenting, you're going to enjoy this course. Art has been making a lot of videos over in the YouTube world, and now these videos, I got to see a sneak peek of this. Very well produced. You guys looked like you were in one of those Food Network set kitchens. It was nice and bright, beautiful kitchen, all the good stuff laid out there.
Friend's house.
Oh, it was a really nice kitchen. I was wondering, like, boy, did they build a set for that? And Art and his sister are a lot of fun to watch too. So I know if you're interested in fermenting, if you've lasted this long through the episode, you definitely got some kind of interest in fermenting. Go ahead and check out the link below. See, you'll learn more about the course there. And leave a comment below if you like fermenting. Share a recipe, share your favorite ferment with us in the comments below. And go ahead and check out Art and Bri's channel. We'll link to that as well. It should be popping up here on the screen right about now.